Okay. Where are we here? All right, Christine's gonna help me a little bit here on the size of print.
Okay, so first off, is it maximized? So it fills up your screen? And that's the icon in the upper right corner, just left to the X is the maximize. Yep, you almost had it. So you've got the X up there.
Right up
so
here?
right next to the X, right there.
Right here.
Yes, left click on that. Okay. It must be maximized then. Okay, so oh, it can't cancel. Okay, it must be good then. Cancel that.
Yeah.
Okay, now off to the where your cursor is right this second. If you eye over to the left, to the right, there's a little arrow that will to your other
Right here.
Yeah, you can click on that one too. So click on that arrow. Okay, now go all the way to the right and do the same on the other side. Left, perfect. Okay, so now you're going to move your cursor up to the magnifying glass, the icons. You see the magnifying glasses?
Yeah.
Okay, so wait, not that one. I'm sorry. Off to the right of those, off to the right. Go further to the right, and we're going to
Right there.
yeah, I
Right
think
there.
try that one. No, continue, not that one. Hover over that. What's that one? Say zoom selected arrow. Go to 3 icons to the right. I think it was didn't we find it under zoom under view? Remember under, I think it was under view. We found it.
Yeah, we can check it.
Yeah. And then we want to zoom. So hover over zoom. And then we wanted
Back there.
which one? Yeah. Zoom to page level, or shoot, I forget which one it was. Shoot. It's been a while since I did this. Try
Right.
zoom to page level.
Zoom to page. Oh,
On that, no, you were right. You were hovering over zoom. No, go back to zoom, and then move your cursor to the right.
yeah,
So,
this is, yeah, if I have the remote, it works much.
yeah, it's harder with the laptop.
This gets
mouse.
really sketchy here.
Yeah, so go a little bit to the right, and then, oh, that's perfect. So click on that little drop down arrow. And then,
Right there.
yeah. Okay, and then we want to like scroll down. And we want to pick a bigger zoom than 100%. So scroll down on the that scroll.
100.
So we want something. Yeah, try like 125 or 150. Try 150.
Oh, I'm way up there now. Now where do I go?
So click on the arrow again. So it came off of it, and then scroll down. And then 150 is like towards the middle. There, it's right there at the bottom. Left click on the 150 and then hit OK and pray that this is perfect. Okay, too big. Shoot. Oh, I forget what it was called that fit to, I can't remember. Maybe Donna remembers. It was like maybe it's
I don't use this platform, but okay, if you go to the hourglass.
It's just the minus down at the bottom that she just had pulled up.
Yeah,
That's
there
how you
should
get
be a
there.
plus and a minus.
Oh, there it is.
There you go.
Yeah,
Right there,
yeah.
the black bar in the middle.
In the
So
middle?
Yep,
Yeah,
that
plus
black
on
bar,
the-
there you go. Scroll all the way to the minus. Keep going to the left. Keep going, keep going.
Right here.
No,
Just go to the minus.
to the left. There you go. Now click minus till you get the size you want. So you like it like that?
Let's see.
Bigger?
Yeah, can everybody see this?
If you want to make it bigger, then you click the plus sign right next to the minus on the right.
Well, we can
No.
see.
Want it one bigger? Click that.
Try scrolling down and see if we can see all the words in
Now
the
use your
paragraph.
mouse. Your mouse has a scroll bar on it if you're using a mouse. Just,
No,
you know,
my mouse got lost somewhere. I don't know where. So I'm working with my
Okay.
computer.
okay, that's good.
Yeah, with the mouse inbuilt.
Okay.
All right, so how are we there?
There you go.
Now we're too big.
Okay, well then just put your cursor in the middle bottom part. There you go. Now hit the minus one time on the, no, to the minus. There you go. One time. I think that would probably be perfect.
Okay. So now I've got to scroll. Okay, so where are we here now? All right, we're on the first title page here. This is Brazil. SOTP. Putin Part 1 by Tess Lambert. This was done in February, almost a year, let's see, 3 years ago. The 19, February 24th, 2019. There's two studies, or there's 2 pages. This is probably going to be short, but we've already taken up some time. There's 36 pages, I believe. So, but there is a part of this study on the second part of it that I will take a little bit of time with, because it is talking about Russia and their information war, which is part of what I was going to talk about if I was to look this up on Tess's what do we call that? The page, her page that she posts on. Yeah, I mean, this is all about AI in the second study. There's about 2 paragraphs, and it actually gives the date and everything for when it began in 2013, going into 2014. So I think this will be quite interesting for us. So let's begin. Right.
So Jackie, were you referring to the media broadcast?
Yeah, the media broadcast. My brain is just not thinking very quick tonight.
No worries, I had to think about it too.
All right, so we'll begin. And anyone have any questions, just tell me, hey, stop, got something to say. Also, anyone who would like to read, that's fine too. And I'm going to try to control this from my end as far as clicking on the pages. I don't know, Christine, if it's better to scroll or whether we should just, if I can click this page by page and do it that way, which would maybe be up here.
It would, except for we're not seeing completely on the bottom.
Oh,
If you
okay.
go to page 2, we can see that we're missing the bottom border. So you might have to do a little bit of scrolling.
All right, so I'm just gonna have to scroll then.
Or if people can see the font, make it just a little bit smaller so the whole page shows, whichever works best.
Yeah, but can you read it though if it gets smaller? Can you see it clearly?
It'd be hard for quite a few people to see it.
So, well, let's begin. Can everyone see this?
Yes. Yes, Jackie, we can see it. It's
All
clear.
right, thank you. Okay, the history of Putin. We've been talking about the war between the King of the North and the King of the South. We're in 2019. Do we think this war, what do we think this war looks like? We've had a proxy war since 2011, sanctions mainly since 2014. And we say nothing is going to change, and that's just what the war will continue as. When we say then, we're not yet in the Eastern Front. So we have to keep this in mind because this is part of the war, the Eastern Front, the Western Front, and all that we've studied in the past about pirates. This is where we're going here, where she's going here with this study on Putin. So in agreement to an earlier study, that there will be broad information that will influence the government of Trump. So we have sanctions, proxy wars, and now we're adding at this time information battles, the AI. We have the attack from the King of the North to conquer 3 areas. This is what we see until now. So what does that conquering look like? As we're, until now, it's about 3 branches of government, which is the legislative, judicial, and executive. When we consider World War II, we will see the 3 allies to the 3 branches, the battle for those 3 allies, where the King of the North, or Hitler, takes on the 3 allies. How many fronts do you have in World War II? How many battles is Hitler fighting? In World War I and World War II, if this is Germany, what disadvantage does it have that Britain, France, and Russia don't have? It has a particular disadvantage. The problem with Germany is its location. It's the West Front and the East Front. Which front is the war with the 3 allies? West. This is the King of the North fighting 3 allies. Where is the war with the King of the South? On the Eastern Front. When we talk about Daniel 1140, the 3 allies aren't just part of that war with the North and the South. What does the Eastern Front look like? What does the war in our time look like? Between the King of the North and the King of the South, then we went to World War II, the King of the North against 3 allies. But what does war look like between Trump and Putin? Okay, where am I now? Oh. This is just gonna be a battle. Being able to scroll and get the
You know,
pages.
Jackie, if you want, I'll pull it up on my screen and I'll run it if you want.
Yeah, I think we're gonna take more time up if we try to deal with this. I'd appreciate that.
I know I sure don't like not working with a mouse.
Yeah.
Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead and exit out of your screen share there. And give me just a second to pull it up.
Okay.
Okay, we can see it, right?
Yes,
I think that we're right here. You read this one, and here's the board work here. That's what you wanted back to, correct?
yeah. The diagram. As I read that paragraph already.
Right.
So we see the diagram. Can you scroll up a bit more?
I can't do that in a slideshow.
Mm,
You can't see it?
I can see the bottom portion there. Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was maybe a little bit, some of it was cut off, but maybe not.
On Elaine's, she's able to show you the whole slide
The
at
whole
one
thing.
time.
Yeah. Okay, so we're looking at the diagram. In 2016, we have 3 allies. King of the North, then we have 3 allies next to that other line. And it's the King of the North. It's Germany in the middle there, we can see. And then we have the allies to the west and to the east.
The
3 allies.
the 3 allies are the West. That's Britain, France, somebody else help me with Poland, right?
Yep,
And then East is
that's what we
Russia,
had.
actually. So the 3 allies, the East is Russia. The king,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, it was Britain, France, and wasn't Russia,
Poland.
the 3.
No, he was fighting the war on Eastern Front and the Western Front. The Eastern Front was with Russia and the Western Front was with the 3 allies, which was Britain, France, and Poland.
Okay,
If I said one of those 3 wrong, somebody let me know, but I'm pretty sure it's Britain, France, and
you're right.
Poland.
Okay,
So he had to fight a war on 2 fronts.
so now you need to scroll down if you can.
I'm not sure what you mean by scroll down. The whole slide was on.
Well, the whole slide, yeah. The next slide.
Yeah, okay, this is the next slide then.
Okay. The next class is coming up before we finish off the history of Pyrrhus. We need to know a little of our history, particularly Putin. We'll also discuss Trump. If we go into the history of Pyrrhus and we see a battle, and that battle says that we're going to see it in 2018, we want to know what we're looking for, because we're saying there is a battle between the King of the North and the King of the South in 2018. We can't keep going further in the studies without addressing the question about what battles look like in our time. We have some information on Putin to go through his early life to where we are today. And looking at what battles look like today, in the past, countries battled for territories, for greater land, which made them more powerful. But now the battle is not for greater territories, because you can have smaller countries with more money and more power. To have power today is to have global influence and a network of subordinate countries that are allied to you. When we consider where Putin came from, we only briefly mentioned it. We didn't go into it, but you can line up Putin and Stalin in a special way with both their life stories and how they came to power and how they ruled. To start from the beginning, they were both raised in extreme poverty. Putin was raised in the slums of Leningrad. His first occupation was hunting rats in stairwells. There would be many families in one flat, and you would separate your family from the other families with cardboard boxes. It was a very difficult upbringing for him. From a young age, he was fascinated with the KGB, the Russian version of the CIA. Stalin became involved with the Bolsheviks. And what was his work at the beginning of the Soviet Union? He organized bank robberies, kidnappings. He murdered government officials. He organized parliamentary groups. And when villages weren't being loyal to the Bolsheviks, he would go into the country and burn down entire villages. He was so violent that Lenin turned against him. In their own communist parliament, he was reprimanded in their parliament. We'll read that side paragraph here. Putin's childhood in St. Petersburg was rife with hardship, but he learned to become a wily street fighter and scrappy underdog. His ambition was rewarded with admission to the Soviet intelligence service as a KGB official. In Dresden, East Germany, he witnessed the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 with the collapse of the Soviet Union 2 years later. Putin and 800,000 KGB officers were left shipwrecked. That was Vladimir Putin's early life. Are there any questions or comments?
That's a lot of officers.
Yeah. 800,000.
I notice a trend with these people that have grown up in really grave, impoverished circumstances, and when they get into power or some sort of leadership level, they can kind of be the worst people, you know? Isn't that interesting?
Yep,
How they forget where they came from.
absolutely. And he's trying to hang on to everything he's got, for sure.
Yeah,
His power and of course his money.
yes.
Because he lives like a king, like most oligarchs do.
They say he's one of the richest men in the world.
Yeah. So we'll find this very incredible as we read on. Yeah, I found it quite fascinating. So when we consider the beginning, share screen is blocking one part of that sentence. Yeah, the black bar at the top of the screen. There we go. Thank you. So we'll start again. When we consider the beginning and the end of the Soviet Union, Stalin was an operative at the beginning and Putin an operative at the end. Stalin had this particular way of fighting that was through violence and parliamentary works. Putin at the end has his way of fighting, but his work was not in this combat way. He joined the KGB and worked in counterintelligence. This type of work all relates to information, how you deceive your enemies, prevent sabotage, to gather political and military information, also to interfere with your enemies' information sources. Stalin is robbing banks and killing people, and then he continues to fight when he's in power in the same way he was trained to. Putin fighting in the same way he was trained to. He was trained in the work of disinformation. We read when we discuss disinformation that only 15% of the resources of the KGB that went to this intelligence operation, only a small percentage went to resources of the KGB that went to this intelligence operation. Only a small percentage went to espionage. The majority of the KGB, he said, the purpose was to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite an abundance of information, no one can come to sensible conclusions to defend themselves, their families, their community, and their country. This work of distorting reality in the West was Vladimir Putin's field to use disinformation. So that is the main work he did in his career. And he did a good job at it too. This work of distorting reality in the West was Vladimir Putin's field to use this disinformation. So Stalin fought the same, what he was trained to, and Putin is fighting the same way he was trained. One defector said that fighting a war on the battlefield is the most primitive and stupid way of fighting a war. The highest art of warfare is not to fight at all, but to subvert anything of value in your enemy's country, to turn them against each other. Exactly what did happen. A disturbing interview given by KGB defector in 1984 describes America of today and outlines 4 stages of mass brainwashing used by the KGB.
Yeah, and that link's there if anybody wants to check that out, if anybody hasn't checked it out.
Yeah. Interesting. Yuri Beslin, some of these Russian names I have a hard time pronouncing, but Bezmenov. Deception was my job, complete. That's what was said. Deception was my job, complete. In 1989, Putin is stationed in Dresden in East Germany, and he's working in counterintelligence for the KGB. This is right when the protests begin to happen. He's working alongside the East German secret police, the Stasis. In 1989, Reagan was in Germany and called on Gorbachev to tear down the wall. Protesters gathered all across East Germany and Dresden. They raided the Stasi headquarters, raided and sacked. Growing more and more angry, they gathered around the KGB building where Putin was working. He's trying to call back to Russia for instructions and help, but he can't get through. Finally, he reaches someone in Moscow. He tells them he's under threat, and protesters are threatening to storm the building. They tell him Moscow is silent. Putin is on his own. He decides to bluff his way out. He walks to the gates of the building and tells the protesters, the mob, there are men with guns inside the building that will shoot them. And this stops the mob from coming in. He then goes to the basement of the building. And with the other agent, they're burning every document they can, just in case the building is stormed. In 1990, he returns to Russia, and in the KGB headquarters in Leningrad, he's watching the statues of Stalin and their leaders being torn down. In 1991, he calls this the greatest geopolitical catastrophe of the century, the collapse of the Soviet Union. They asked him last year if he could change one event in his nation's history, what would it be? And he said, the collapse of the Soviet Union. A lot of bad things have happened in Russia, but what he wants to change is the collapse of the Soviet Union. He calls, there's also a famous story about this. He calls home, he calls Moscow, trying to understand what he's to do, trying to get orders, and Moscow doesn't respond. And this is according to many biographers who have chronicled Putin's life, a massive, massive trauma for him, that this massive historical event is happening. The Soviet influence is collapsing before his eyes, and he calls home. He radios home, and home isn't there.
So that was an article. It says The Atlantic, and then the link is PBS. That must be where you find it at.
Okay.
But it was an article you can read that's telling the story of of that, his experience there.
Yeah, it says Julia Loa from the Atlantic. They write some good articles. All right. So any questions, thoughts? Input? So he's working for the KGB from before at 1989 and 1990. He returns to Leningrad. With the collapse of the Soviet Union, he begins to become involved in politics. From 1991 to 1995, he's working in politics in Leningrad. These are local politics. In 1996, he decides to become involved in state politics. He travels to Moscow and starts winning over Boris Yeltsin. One thing that Putin is good at is politics, how to interact with people. In this time period, he convinced Yeltsin that he also wanted to see Russia as a democracy. Okay. And like Lenin, realized that Stalin had tricked him. By the time Yeltsin died, he realized Putin had tricked him. But disinformation and lies was Putin's training. Within 3 years, by 1999, he has become Russia's prime minister. He's working directly under Yeltsin. In August 1999, he's the 5th prime minister in 18 months. The government is in chaos. See the line? 1989 to the year 2000. So this is the transition that was going on with Putin also, and where he was going,
Well,
how he was going to rise to his power.
no,
Is there a comment?
Zoom won't get over till 8
Somebody has a mic
o'clock or
on.
something like that.
Someone has a mic?
No. Because it's only
Just relay.
6:45, so it's going to be another hour and 15 minutes till Zoom.
I think Robert's got his mic on.
Here's
There's boxes showing up on the screen.
the black boxes, like I see 3 right now.
Yeah, I see too.
There's all these little black boxes.
3. Now they're gone.
Okay, good, yeah.
Okay, should we carry on? Putin becomes prime minister a month later in September 1999. It's the Russian apartment building bombings. These were the Russian apartment bombings that got Putin elected as president. There were some apartments in Russia where bombs were placed in the basement, and when they went off, nearly 300 people died. Putin blamed terrorists from Chechnya and began the Second Chechnyan War. There's some discrepancies with this account. His approval rating soared after these bombings. He responded like a straw man, and he took full advantage of that publicity. Many historians, people whose account can be trusted, believe that those apartment bombings were organized by FSB. The FSB was set up by the KGB. It's the same thing. It's believed that those apartment bombings were set up with the purpose of promoting Putin into the presidency. There's some solid evidence for this. One of those speakers at the parliament accidentally announced that building has been bombed 3 days before the bomb was set off. Did I miss something there? There's other evidence also. People, eyewitnesses recognized FSB officers and were able to name them. And later they found undetonated bombs at the bottom of other apartment buildings. FSB claimed that this was a training exercise using live bombs without evacuating anyone. This has been a scandal inside Russia. One woman began investigating. Her name is Anna. She's a Russian journalist, a writer, and human rights activist, and she was reporting on the Second Chechen War. They arrested her and put her through a mock execution. In 2004, she was poisoned, but she survived just 2 of the times they tried to silence her. 7th of October, 2006, she was found dead in a lift. She had been shot in the style of an execution. It was just a few blocks from the Kremlin, and it was Vladimir Putin's birthday. A lawyer tried to investigate what she was reporting. He was assassinated in 2009. A journalist saw him being attacked. She tried to save him. She was also killed. Then one of Anna's main informants 6 months later was also killed. So there's been a trail of assassinations, executions of anyone who has looked into this. You're brutal. Brutality. Next slide. In the year 2000, one man fled Russia after being threatened by Putin. His name was Levinenko. I'm not pronouncing that right. Litvinenko. He also began to speak about the Chechen War. When he saw Anna had died, he began to speak more about the Chechen War. He wrote 2 books where we talked about the apartment bombing and then being an inside job with the FSB on November 1st, 2006. He met with 2 former KGB agents. They claimed to have the information on Anna's death. A few hours after the meeting, he became sick. It was polonium poisoning. He died a few weeks later. Some of his final words were, "You may succeed in silencing one man, but there will be protests from around the world that Mr. Putin will hear for the rest of his life." He knew he had him killed. We've covered about 4 or 5. There is not time, but that is the tip of the iceberg. He has killed dozens of people, but we're just speaking about people directly related to the apartment bombings. There are many others. So this Russian apartment bombing was a series of explosions that hit 4 apartment blocks in the Russian cities of Meninsky, Moscow, and Volgask. In September 1999, killing more than 300, injuring more than 800, and spreading a wave of fear across the country. The bombings, together with the Dagestan War, led the country into the Second Chechen War. Vladimir Putin's handling of the crisis boosted his popularity and helped him attain the presidency within a few months. Alexander Levinenko, who blamed FSB for the bombings in 2 blocks, was poisoned by FSB agents in London. According to historians, the bombings were coordinated by the Russian State Security Service to bring Putin into the presidency. 10, 11, 12 was kind of. This view was justified by a number of suspicious events, including bombs planted by FSB agents in the city of Ryazan, an announcement about bombing in the city of Volgask 3 days before it had happened by Russian Duma speaker. Gennady says, I can't pronounce that word. So, anybody else want to try? I don't speak Russian very well. Weak evidence and denials by suspects, none of whom was a Chechen, and poisoning of Alexander Litvinenko, who wrote 2 books on the subject. This comes from Wikipedia. Anybody wants to look that up? The Russian apartment bombings. Now, this is just a chronology of events from August 5th, 1999 to September 24th, 1999. These are all these bombings and events that were happening. We can read through each one of these. The Dagestan War. Stefan Shin was dismissed and Putin became prime minister. The forces of Shamil Bashev withdrew back into Chechnya. The 25th of August, Russian jets made bombing runs against 16 sites in Chechnya. September 4, bombing in Donetsk, 64 people killed, 133 are injured. September 9th, bombing in Moscow. Petchinaki, 94 people are killed, 249 are injured. September 13th, bombing in Moscow. Kashkir Highway, 118 are killed. 13th of September, a bomb was defused in a warehouse containing several tons of explosives, and 6 timing devices have been found in Moscow. Again, on September 13th, Russian Duma Speaker Gennady Selznov made an announcement about bombing of an apartment building in the city of Volgodonsk that took place only 3 days later, on September 16th. Again, September 16th was this bombing. 18 are killed, 288 injured. September 23rd, an apartment bomb was found in the city of Ryazan. Vladimir Helio announced that police prevented a terrorist act. Vladimir Putin praised the vigilance of the citizens and called for the air bombing of Grozny. September 24th, 1999, all in the same year, FSB agent who planted the bomb in Ryazan were arrested by local police. Nikolai Pastrovich declared that the incident was a training exercise. And again, September 24th, Second Chechen War begins. A lot of things happened in that year. Criticism. March 2000, Putin dismissed the allegations of SSB involved in the bombings as delirious nonsense. There are no people in the Russian Secret Service who would be capable of such crime against their own people. The very allegation is immoral, he said. An FSB spokesman said that Levashenko's evidence cannot be taken seriously by those who are investigating the bombings. According to Russian journalist Adriy Solodov, from the start, it seemed that the Kremlin was determined to suppress all discussion. When Alexander Podryabenis, a Russian human rights activist, tried to import copies of Levashenko's and Leshtiskany blowing up Russia in 2003. They were confiscated by the FSB. Trespashin himself, acting as a lawyer for two relatives of the victims of the blast, was unable to obtain information he requested and was entitled to see by law. However, he believed the obstruction may reflect paranoia rather than guilt on the part of the authorities. Russian journalist and radio host Yulia Ladanina opinioned that the version about FSB involvement was absurd because it was promoted by Boris Brzezinski, who himself brought Putin to power. However, she criticized the FSB for poor handling of the case. According to Strobe Talbot, who was a United States Deputy Secretary of State during the events, there was no evidence to support the conspiracy theory, although Russian public opinion did indeed solidify behind Putin in his determination to carry out a swift, decisive counteroffensive. Incredible. On December 1999, Yeltsin steps down and Putin becomes president. He's relatively new in government. To go from just involved in local politics to president of Russia in 4 years. It's a very quick rise from the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991 to 1999. Television and news had become independent. They were free to ridicule their politicians. They would mock Putin. One of their largest companies was in NTB. Putin had it raided. He got them not directly, but their parent company. It was the largest independent media company in Russia. He imprisoned their president and said that he would be freed if he would hand over NTB to the oligarchs. An oligarch friendly to Putin. Almost as soon as he comes into power, he began taking over the media. When he became president in 1999, one of the first people to visit him was Bill Clinton. This visit did not go well. Putin was angry with what the United States had done to Russia. Clinton immediately left his meeting with Putin and went to meet with Yeltsin. He said to Yeltsin, "I'm concerned about the man you have turned the president over to." He leaned over and touched Yeltsin in his heart. And he said, "Vladimir Putin doesn't have democracy in his heart." The visit had not gone well. But in 2001, there's a new president. Now there's George Bush. Vladimir Putin is hoping he can have a good relationship with the West. In Putin's mind, they can be allies. If there's the right president, there are powers that can work side by side. So began to build a good relationship with George Bush. George Bush said famously, "I looked the man in the eye and found him to be very straightforward. I was able to get a sense of his soul. He's a man deeply committed to his country and to the best interest of his country." So it starts off well. They are friends. And then 9/11 happens. And Vladimir Putin was the very first world leader to call George Bush and give sympathy and support. He was trying to work as like a global partner, to give advice, to offer help. But Bush wanted to go a certain way, And that was into a war with Iraq, which was exactly what Vladimir Putin didn't want. He had watched America conduct regime change in the Soviet Union, and he was very against the Iraq war. He tried to convince Bush not to go into the war, but he suddenly found he wasn't listened to. In 2003, the Iraq war began. Are there any questions on the chat?
Was said, Susan said, sounds similar to what Bush said about the Pope. When asked about the Pope, he said, it felt like I was looking into the eyes of God.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Putin had said about the Iraq war that it was shaking the foundations of global stability, that Bush went against international law. He spoke strongly against it. In 2003, he's still saying we have a good relationship with the United States. So they might listen to us. But George Bush's language is different. He, speaking of spreading democracy, George Bush said, and everywhere that freedom stirs, let tyrants fear. We don't fully realize what the Iraq war resulted in. This is what turned Putin against the West. He was willing to negotiate until then. In 2004, Russia suffers another terrorist attack. Chechen terrorists hijacked a school. Over 1,000 people were held hostage. Putin ordered the army to attack the school. Nearly a third of the hostages died in the firefight that followed. Putin blamed the Chechens' attack on the United States. His tone begins to change. It's after this attack, terrorist attack in 2004, he canceled elections and forced out all opposition leaders. In 2004, he sets up a dictatorship. Okay. So we see what's going on the line below. 1999, 9/11, 2001, that was George Bush, 2003, Iraq War, and 2004, Beslin terrorist attack. There's comments going on there. If anyone wants to say anything.
Just saying that Bush wasn't very good about reading people, and that's why that comment was remembered about the Pope. And Donna mentioned that Bush was a born-again Christian. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I know he was a Christian. He professed to be anyway.
Yeah, he was. He was a real born again Christian. He got convicted somewhere along the way.
Okay. And his wife too, Laura, huh?
Yeah, I think so. Well, because he was an alcoholic for a while.
Yeah, he was a party boy.
Yeah, and then his marriage came to a place where Laura said, it's either me or the booze. Make your decision, And so he went down that road of because Christian in the Protestant denomination, there's certain denominations that will specialize in substance abuse and will help you get out of, the kids and, teenagers that get caught up in drugs and stuff. So they do have a program that seems to work, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, well, the man had some conscience, not like our person here, Putin. Yeah, I mean, a lot of these things I've read, and I've read this a couple of times already. It's just incredible, what they can do with a conscience, just as if it's nothing at all.
This study is really detailed.
Isn't it?
It's really interesting. Yeah, very detailed.
So, and it's all related to, where we see Putin going now, why he's acting the way he is and covering up all this stuff and telling all these lies, It's his pattern. But he's scared to death. He's really, filled with fear. He's going to lose his power. So we'll read this on the side. The Beslin school siege was referred to as the Beslin school hostage crisis, the Beslin massacre. It started on the 1st of September 2004 and lasted 3 days. It involved the illegal imprisonment of over 1,100 people as hostages, including 777 children, and ended with the death of at least 334 people. The crisis began when a group of armed Islamic militants, mostly Inquis and Chechen, occupied school number 1, SNO, in the town of Beslin, North Ossetia, Autonomous Republic in the North Caucasus region of the Russian Federation. On September the 1st, 2004, the hostage takers were the Ryadas Selahin, sent by Chechen warlord Shamil Beja. Pardon all these, the expression of pronunciation of these names. It's, yeah, I'm trying to come as close as I can to what it actually says. Who demanded recognition of the independence of Chechnya and Russian withdrawal from Chechnya. On the 3rd day of the standoff, Russian security forces stormed the building with the use of tanks, incendiary rockets, and other heavy weapons. As of December 2006, 334 people, excluding terrorists, were killed, including 186 children. The event led to security and political repercussions in Russia, most notably. It contributed to a series of federal government reforms, consolidating power in the Kremlin and the strengthening of the powers of the president of Russia. As of 2016, aspects of the crisis in relation to the militants continue to be contentious. Questions remain regarding of how many terrorists were involved, the nature of their preparations, and whether a section of the group had escaped. Questions about Russian government's management of the crisis have also persisted, including allegations of disinformation and censorship in news media, whether the journalists who were present at Beslin were allowed to freely report on the crisis, the nature and the content of the negotiations with the terrorists, allocations of responsibility for the eventual outcome, and perceptions that excessive force was used. The European Court of Human Rights, ECHR, in a 2017 ruling, criticized Russia for not taking sufficient precautions before the event and for using excessive lethal force when concluding the siege, which violated the right to life. So we're going back to 1999. We've got B. Browder, the oligarchs, and Putin. Between 9/11 and 1999, we have the oligarchs and Putin. And then 9/11, 2001 is George Bush. 2003 is the Iraq War, Putin oligarchs, and then we have the 2004. We're going back into 1999. He becomes president, but he's weak because Russia is run by oligarchs. When it goes from a communist country to a capitalist, all their state-owned holdings are privatized. They sold off they were sold off for nothing. So a small group of powerful men buy them up. they become Russia's oligarchs. And that was a bloodthirsty battle over those holdings. So Putin has become president, and there's one man in Russia named Bill Browder. If you're going to research these are the names we need to know. Bill Browder, Levin Litvinenko, particularly Bill Browder. He came from the United States and began to invest in Russia. He started an investment company, the most successful investment company ever known, because they were able to invest in these companies that had just been privatized in and around 1999. He began to realize that the companies he was investing in were very corrupt. He decided to start researching their corruption and then releasing how they were doing this corruption to journalists and the media. Other people before him had tried to handle the corruption. They tended to die. So he had a good group of bodyguards. It was a good idea. And I was fighting, okay, I lost my place here. 1999, Bill Browder is fighting the oligarchs. Who else is fighting them? Vladimir Putin. They had a common enemy. Bill Browder is investigating these powerful men and uncovering their corruption. And that helps Vladimir Putin, because then Putin is able to arrest those that are corrupt. But not because they are corrupt, but because they threaten his power. Towards the end of 2003, this changes and Putin makes his move to control them. He takes the richest oligarchs, richest man in Russia, the owner of one of their oil companies. He arrests him on his private jet and brings him back to Russia and puts him on a public trial. His name is Mikhail Khodorkovsky. His oil company is Yukos. He puts him inside a cage in a courtroom and has the news camera come in and film it. This is the richest man in Russia. And what Putin is doing is sending a message to all the oligarchs. One by one, they submit to Putin and they ask what they need to do to be safe. On top of doing as Putin tells them to do, they must also give him a cut of their profits. Now Bill Browder is in trouble, because now when he's attacking the oligarchs, he's no longer attacking just them, but Vladimir Putin. Because Putin is taking a cut off their corruption. Around this time in 2003, Vladimir Putin also makes a deal with the Russian mafia. Over this time, he brings in the oligarchs and the mafia. Everything is state controlled. You don't have a mafia in Russia that is separate from the government. So now Bill Browder is in danger. In 2005, he's detained in a Russian airport and deported. He's declared a threat to national security. He evacuated his staff and sold everything he had in Russia. In 2007, police officers raided his office in Moscow. They were able to re-register his companies in their own names. They took over his companies. They did not know that he had already drained his accounts when he fled Russia. They got no money from this. What they did instead is they asked for a tax refund from the businesses. But the taxes he paid to the Russian government was $230 million. They asked for this tax refund on the 23rd of December. It was paid to them the following day with no questions asked. The biggest tax refund in Russian history. To be able to do this, they've been able to trace bribes at every level, at every stage, and this had to have Putin's approval to go ahead. Oh, how corrupt. Ooh. Anybody have any comments?
I remember that when this was going on. And I know that there's a man that, I mean, because they ended up killing Browder, right? They tortured him or something. And then this other guy took up the torch, and something happened, and he, like, I think America froze all Russian assets. I forget, but I do remember this whole scenario. It was very, very volatile.
It wasn't Bill Browder. It was his lawyer, Magnitsky.
Oh, yes, that's right. Magnitsky.
Mhm.
That's
I
right.
remember the name, not
Right.
so much the incidents, but yeah,
Yes.
I wasn't paying too much attention, to what was going on in these years.
He started some sort of a thing where they could freeze the assets of the Russian, America could freeze the assets, or I think it was worldwide, actually. They could worldwide freeze the assets.
Yeah, that's the Magnitsky. I can't even say it now.
Right,
Magnitsky Act.
right. Yeah. Yes, you're right, Penny.
Yeah, well, it's
It's-
it's so deep you can hardly follow it. It's so corrupt.
Since
It's
it says it's ironic that when Putin started out in his young years, he trapped rats. Is it kind
yes,
of- right?
That's,
yes, he was in charge of rats,
that is
Yeah,
funny.
trapping them.
and now look where he's at. As we look at the possibility of him going into what's the country, right on his there, he's got all the troops on their border.
Ukraine.
Ukraine. I mean, come on, it's in the news all day long. But this is all the background here. And it gets much deeper in the second one. So, okay, so we're still with Bill Browder, right? That 1989 to 2000. Bill Browder began to speak publicly against what he was seeing happening. He hired a young lawyer, inside Russia, surgery, there it is, right there, Magnitsky testified in Russia to the Russian version of the FBI. In 2008, the same offices that he testified to arrested Magnitsky. A little blurry. Russian 101. Yeah, thanks, Sue. He was beaten and tortured. They tried to have him take back his testimony. For over 6 months, he was moved to different jails. Through harsh conditions and torture, his health broke down. November 16, 2009, they tied him to his bed and beat him to death. Bill Browder was very angry, and his life purpose since then is to get justice for Meninsky. What Bill Browder now does is go from country to country and ask them to pass the Meninsky Act. What this act does is put sanctions on everyone that benefited from Meninsky's death. Some of Russia's most powerful people, including Vladimir Putin, can no longer access their money in Western bank accounts because of these sanctions. Trump and Putin met in Helsinki in 2018. When they came and stood out in the front, they gave a small account of what they had spoken about. Trump said Putin was so generous. The only thing he'd ask of me is that I give him an interview with Bill Browder. So you have a meeting between the King of the North and the King of the South, their very first meeting. And what does Putin want more than anything? Trump, the useful idiot. What does he want more than anything? I lost my place. The only thing he'd ask, where am I? Okay. Bill Browder. He's considered to be Putin's #1 enemy. Through these early years, we can see Putin take control of Russia. He silences the media first. Then he brings in the oligarchs, the Russian mafia. And then in 2004, all opposition is silenced due to a terrorist attack. By then, the Iraq war is happening. And now he is speaking against the United States. In 2004 was the Beslin terrorist attack. Opposition silenced. It's progressive. I don't think it's a coincidence, but every dictatorship starts with the media. You take down the media before anything else, it's a pattern we can see Trump following. So here's the Meninsky Act, formerly known as the Russian Moldova-Jackson-Vanik repeal and Sergei Magnitsky Rule of Law Accountability Act of 2012. It's a bipartisan bill passed by the US Congress and signed into law by President Barack Obama. December 2012, intending to punish Russia, officials responsible for the death of Russian tax accountant Sergei Meninsky in a Moscow prison in 2009. Since 2016, the bill, which applies globally, authorizes the US government to sanction those who it sees as human rights offenders, freezing their assets and ban them from entering the US. I've been under his skin for a long time, Browder told me, referring to Putin. He's pointed to the expansion of the Meninsky Act across the 7 countries and counting, and to the money laundering investigations that have been launched as a result of the discovery of the alleged tax fraud scheme. He knows he has the potential to bring down the Russian government at some point in time. Any questions?
Was there ever a meeting with Browder and Putin? Do we know the answer to that?
I don't think so, because I think this is the only portion of the study where it talks about Bill Browder.
Okay.
Might be something to look up though. Did he meet Bill Browder? Trump met Bill Browder, didn't he?
I don't believe Putin got what he wanted.
No.
Did Trump ever meet Bill Browder?
Not that I'm aware of.
I don't know for sure.
Okay. Yeah.
Throw it out there if it's, yeah.
Yeah. I have to look that up.
So we've got the same line here. It's going from 1999, beginning with Browder, the oligarchs and Putin, going through the Beslin terrorist attack. That was 2004. I'm going backwards. 9/11 was George Bush, Iraq war, Putin, oligarchs, and then 2004 Beslin terrorist attack, opposition, silence, and then Munich, Germany, 2007. So in 2007, he's speaking in Munich, Germany, and Putin says, "I'm allowed to speak my mind, aren't I?" And then he launches an angry attack against the United States, particularly because of the Iraq war. He says, first, the United States has overstepped its national borders. In the economic and political spheres, it pushes on other nations. Who would like this? This is, of course, extremely dangerous. It results in the fact that we no longer feel safe. I want to emphasize this. No one feels safe. Putin's mindset is interesting. From the time he was in Dresden, Germany, he knows the personal threat the United States can be when it's conducting regime change and when it's flexing its muscles. By the time he gets into power in 1999, he has no sympathy for Clinton. He won't work with him. But he thinks he can work with George Bush. And the relationship is going well. But when he sees what the United States did in Iraq, he knows that the same United States that took down the Soviet Union and who's refusing to listen to him now, all must abide by international law. It wouldn't hesitate to also destroy him. When the United States invaded Iraq and they broke international law, that's not a conspiracy theory. They went into that against the United Nations. That's illegal. So when a journalist stands up and says to Vladimir Putin, you invaded the Ukraine, what do you think he's going to say? You invaded Iraq. And they'll say, you invaded Georgia. We can still say, you invaded Iraq. Kenny says, he's only able to work with the Republican president. Yeah. We can still say you invaded Iraq against international law, and he knows that the United States has not changed. So what you are saying in 2007, that no one feels safe, it shows some of his personal paranoia. The relationship with George Bush has disintegrated. In 2009, Vladimir Putin is finished his second term as president. George Bush had finished his second term as well. So now you have a new president in Russia and the United States. This is Moldev and Obama. Moldev. He gives the job of rebuilding. Still have that line extended. He gives the job of rebuilding this relationship to his Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton. We'll go into that in another study. That's the second one. Before we go back into pirates, we'll cover the history with Clinton. So we need to have a little bit of knowledge of this, even if the names don't come easily. In teaching this in one place and referencing the 2016 election and the things that are being questioned inside the movement, people who don't know any of this history say, why would Putin ever go into an alliance with Trump? They believe in the conspiracy theories that he was actually in an alliance with Hillary Clinton. They're questioning why Putin would ever have a problem with Clinton being president. Perhaps we're still not comfortable with how Putin works or why he's doing what he's doing. I think we have more to understand prophetically about this earlier history, how Putin turned against the West, but particularly when it comes to what his problems are, what he wants from Donald Trump. What he asked for was Bill Browder. What he's fighting against is sanctions. How many have you have heard of the meetings in Trump Tower in 2016? In 2016, there was a meeting in Trump Tower between a Russian lawyer. Well, to pronounce that, Natasha V something. Part of the investigation into Trump is why this Russian lawyer met in secret with his campaign manager and son-in-law. This lawyer, Natasha V, was tasked with one job from the Kremlin. She's a lawyer that travels around the world, and her one task is take down Meninsky Acts and destroy Bill Browder. That is what much of this is coming down to. Trump said that that meeting was about sanctions. That part of his lies was true. She was trying to get them to turn on Bill Browder. She wanted the campaign team, if Trump was elected, to remove sanctions on the Russian government. That one, and Penny's got a note up there. That is one of the reasons Trump is under investigation. Some of these things start to tie together. Oh, and they can give us a picture of what is happening in politics today, why Trump is under investigation. Some of these things start to tie together. They can give us a picture of what's happening in politics today, and Russia under investigation. He used the terrorist attack as an excuse to come out against terrorists, but he specifically blamed the United States for terrorist attacks. And then your nation is afraid. What he's been able to do in Russia is afraid of what he's been able to do in Russia, is make them see that everything is the United States. He's given them the idea that he's the only person that can keep them safe. Anything that opposes him, any opposition or protest, is sponsored by the United States. It made it much easier in 2004 to remove the opposition, and he canceled the elections that were being held. So are there any questions on the line?
Yeah, Penny makes the statement. The Magnitsky Act allows the US government to freeze the assets and ban travel to anyone involved in corruption or human rights abuse. Browder feels that using the Magnitsky Act is the only way to stop Putin from invading Ukraine, as once someone is on the Magnitsky Act, they become financial pariah who can no longer do business with anyone, anywhere in the world.
So does that involve sanctions then too, I guess, huh? Against Putin? Are we using this? Are we using this act towards him now with this war?
I don't think so.
I don't think he's on the list.
Pardon me?
Is there like an actual list? Do you know anything? I don't know.
I don't know. Anything else?
Susan says, following the United States, Magnitsky legislation has been enacted in a number of territories, including the United Kingdom, Estonia, Canada, Lithuania, Latvia, Gibraltar, Jersey, and Kosovo. Thank you, Kosovo.
Yeah, and that's what it was talking about in the Natasha, don't know how to say her name either, Beslin, something like that. That was her only job. That was her only role, was to go and take down these Magnitsky Acts, because the Magnitsky Acts put sanctions on the oligarchs that they couldn't do the work that they were doing, the bidding that they were doing. So it tied the hands of Putin.
Definitely. You can see why I wanted to get rid of that.
And there was another comment. So Susan put in, remember we were talking about Yuri Vitsmekov earlier, and he states that liberals are only used to help cause the divide in a country, and then they're gotten rid of. So that back on that, because Penny said it appears he's only able to work with the Republican presidents. And so, and that's why, because, yeah, if that helps. I'm not explaining very good.
Did everyone get that?
Yeah, and these are just background. You don't have to read it. You
Okay.
might get too tongue-tied if you do try to, but just background on the, well, it says Natalia here, so I don't know if it's Natalia or Natasha. So maybe it's Natalia because this was copied out of there. And then this is one of the other guys. So we'll get too tongue-tied trying to read too much of that. But talking about him being the richest one, just some Wikipedia things for extra reading if anybody wants to do it.
Okay.
I think that might be the last. A
Is it
little
the
bit on,
last?
here's
I
a
think-
little bit on Bill Browder then too as well. So I think we all kind of touched on who he is and what he did.
Yeah. Is there one more slide or not? This is the last one.
Yeah, that's the
Thought
last.
there was 17. Maybe that's the second one.
Yeah. We're not gonna have time to go through the second one. Plus you said you needed more time to go through the second one.
Yeah. It's 17 pages, I think.
So do you want me to put the second one on the schedule for next Friday?
What's on for tomorrow afternoon? Wasn't tomorrow? afternoon open?
There's nothing, after the Ninja Sheep, there's nothing in the afternoon. Do you want to put it down for tomorrow?
Yeah,
afternoon?
sure. We could do it.
Is that
tomorrow.
enough time, Jackie?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
I've already gone through the second one. It's very good.
Okay,
We
You're
want to
on
keep
for
the
this
thoughts in our
second-
minds from the first one.
yeah,
They're connected.
okay.
Yeah, if you'll share screen too, Elaine, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah. But I think I'll figure out if that optimized thing was still chosen. Maybe that's why.
Yeah,
But maybe that's why that bar in the chat came up, because it doesn't, you guys don't usually see that. We don't usually see what individuals do. And you guys were seeing what I was doing and you shouldn't have.
yeah, that's right.
So that is why, because I'm looking at it now and it is still clicked. So do you want to say a closing prayer and then maybe we can have some discussion afterwards?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thank you, everyone, for sharing, learning from one another through it. Almighty God, we thank you so much for blessing us tonight with not only the Sabbath that's begun, bringing us together for this study, a blessing for sure. The Holy Spirit really impresses our hearts to connect the pieces here, the dots from the study that Elder Tess gave and how it relates to our what we're seeing right now with Russia, its aggression, the King of the South. And it's important that we understand all of these things that are going on, see these facts that have gone on way back when, even before 2014. And we know that you're bringing us to this at this point so that we can really understand this information war, which is the real key here. So we thank you for all the blessings you've given to us and your watchful care over us as your people and your people out in the world. And we pray that we will be blessed for the second portion of this again tomorrow on the Sabbath. And we thank you that we can share and learn and grow and continue to be changed into more and more of your image and likeness. And we thank you for hearing this prayer, our prayers, and protecting us and watching over us through this past week. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.